Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Ryan Heath with me here today. Ryan is a devoted father, husband, attorney, civil rights activist, and founding partner of Heath Law. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks, Tim. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So for our viewers who can actually see the screen, you can see the promenade beacon in the background. So Ryan's office is over there in Scottsdale. That's a landmark I picked out right away. Ryan, why don't you give us a snapshot of what your practice focuses on right now, and then we can sort of back up and talk about how you got there.
Yeah, so I focus on all sorts of litigation, generally civil litigation. I'm currently suing organizations like the Arizona Association of Realtors. I'm suing different individuals involved in civil rights violations for my clients. I'm an election attorney as well. I used to represent Abraham Hamadeh in a number of lawsuits involving the 2022 general election. I do constitutional claims. I'm suing California school districts all over. It's just a sort of fun career for me. I kind of fell into it, and I've been very blessed in my career.
Okay. And it sounds, I imagine you're pretty passionate about it and the issues you take on the clients.
Yeah, you could say that. I quit a job that I was recruited into a year after law school to start a nonprofit organization, and I emptied my family's life savings to fly around California teaching kids how to civilly disobey their school's COVID-19 mask mandates. So I'm very passionate, and I have a great support system at home. My wife is just fantastic, and I've been blessed to take that sort of civil rights activism and turn that into a very great career in law.
Okay, excellent. And so is it safe to say you started in California then?
No, I'm licensed in Arizona. I went out to California because it was the epicenter of what I saw as tyrannical government overreach. So that was really the goal, was to find the most egregious cases of children being abused by their teachers, principals, school boards, and try to hold those folks accountable, which we're doing right now through litigation.
Okay, and what's sort of the time frame for cases like that, and when did it start, and how long is it going to go for?
Years. We've been litigating those cases since 2022, so it's still ongoing. At least one of them is still in the the California Court of Appeal, 4th District. It's a handful of a case as far as the procedural posture goes, but needless to say, we're getting shafted by the California courts there, and we have a very strong claim, and we're hoping to actually bring this case to the Supreme Court in a few months once we get through the California Supreme Court. Okay,
so so basically every time it doesn't go your way, you level up and say and call out each level beneath you as not performing according to federal mandates or constitutional.
Yeah, so the idea was basically your free speech rights are not just limited to what you say as an individual. Your free speech actually extends to your what's called expressive conduct. So if you are engaging in any sort of action that is intended to convey meaning, let's say taking a mask off in violation of a mask mandate, you are actually engaged in expressive conduct. That's free speech. It's protected by the First Amendment. And if someone retaliates against you for engaging in that conduct, you can sue them personally for damages under Title 42, Section 1983 of the U.S. Code. And that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, so take a step back here. So communication, what is, I don't remember what it is. It's like 80% nonverbal, right, or something, right? And so, but speech, right, seems like it's defined as verbal. Right, not communication, but speech. Right, is that like it's that fraction that's not. So I mean, these are those little nuances that I think in law you have to interpret. Right.
Exactly, and the case that I really hang my hat on is a case from the Vietnam War era. It was a case out of Des Moines that actually had a number of students who decided to wear black armbands in protest of a school's mandate requiring them to not wear black armbands. Basically, the same exact factual scenario as a mask. It's in the inverse, though. So those kids, in violation of the school policy, it's called Tinker v. Des Moines, they decided to wear black armbands to contravene the school's mandate. They were punished. They were disciplined. They took the case to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yes, this is expressive conduct. These students were not disrupting the learning environment. They weren't violating the rights of other students. They were expressing a message by wearing a blank article of clothing that was very clear because there was a mandate saying you couldn't do that. And so that was protected speech, and we were doing the same thing with respect to masks.
Okay. Regarding colors in clothing, I mean, I remember something about that, and they tried to outlaw Bloods and Crips and Reds and Blues and stuff in certain cities and schools and stuff for a while. I imagine that's kind of similar.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit, it is similar, but it's a little bit of a different scenario. You're talking about endangering the learning environment, violating the rights of other students, creating an environment that is actually dangerous. There was no evidence at the time, even back in early 2021, 2020, that masks did anything to slow the spread or protect individuals from COVID-19. There's a really great video. You can find it on YouTube of a doctor. This was back in early 2021, taking a hit of a vape pen, putting on a mask and showing individuals that the vape pen, the vapor coming out of it actually went straight through the mask. And that's because the size of the particles from that vapor are much smaller than what the mask can actually capture. And those are even bigger than what the COVID-19 virus was at the time, the coronavirus. So it really did nothing. It was a waste of time. It was a face ornament that we were compelled to wear, and it violated our constitutional rights. And so I took that idea, I stood up on my principles, and I went around California teaching these kids and their families how to civilly disobey their mandates. I actually sat outside of high schools in some instances for 3 days, negotiating between teachers, the police, the kids, the parents, the principal, teaching kids how to basically go back into their classrooms and refuse to comply very politely, just saying, no, thank you, I'm not going to wear that. In one case, this was in Tesoro High School in Capistrano Unified School District in Orange County. A student actually chased his class from classroom to classroom because every time he would sit down and try to learn, they would move the kids to a different room. All he wanted to do was sit there peacefully, not disrupt the learning environment, and just learn. I mean, it was ridiculous. So it was a wonderful learning experience for me. I got to meet a lot of really great people. But now I really focus on litigation here in Arizona. Like I said, I'm not licensed in California. The nonprofit that I run, the Gavel Project, has to hire California attorneys to litigate these cases. We've taken on all sorts of cases. We had a case actually I'm no longer involved with, but a little girl who was in Capistrano Unified School District again, first grader, drew a picture. It said Black Lives Matter, and underneath it said All Lives Matter. And it had a couple of blobs, different colors that she drew. And she gave this picture to her friend. And the principal told her that she was a racist and decided to punish her and stick her outside, not outside, but punish her and prevent her from going to recess for weeks because she drew this picture. We got this case in federal court all the way up to trial. We were a week away from trial, and the judge threw the case out on a sua sponte decision that no one even argued this point that he made, which is basically him saying that first graders don't have First Amendment rights. So that case was taken up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm no longer involved, like I said, but I am praying for that family. I know that they're a great family. The little girl is really fantastic, and my hope is that she actually gets to go back down and have her trial.
First graders, or there's an age restriction on.
According to this judge, he's in my view, not acting in accordance with law. It was really gross what he did.
That's another example, though, how a lot of these issues are very charged, right? And it's people respond emotionally, not rationally. They've already decided what they feel is right or right, and then they try to find things to support it. That sounds incredibly challenging.
Yeah, that's all my work, though. I mean, every case I file is a novel lawsuit. It's based on a pretty wild fact pattern, and we're seeking to hold people accountable. We're seeking to make sure that individuals' constitutional rights are upheld, and that the words on that piece of paper mean something. They're not just something that can be tossed aside with the judge's whim.
Right. Wow. Okay. So what you mentioned before we get into sort of, well, I think the real estate thing was Arizona, right? Can you share about that one? That sounds exciting. You have how long has that one been going? What was the premise?
So that's been going for a year. We filed this lawsuit up in Yavapai County last year. My client's name is Chad DeVries. He's actually in Texas today, speaking at the Texas State Legislature. I was invited to go. I spoke there on April 27th or the 26th. I don't remember the exact date. Don't hold me to that. But anyway, there's this bill in the legislature that's trying to provide increased protections for individuals who are members of professional trade organizations, like realtors, attorneys, doctors, who are currently being targeted and punished for engaging in free speech, making statements, let's say at school board meetings or on their social media accounts, which is what happened in my client's case, by their professional trade organizations, even though these statements have nothing to do with their professional services, their employment practices. They don't have anything relative to their profession. They're just, my client's case, he was posting memes on his personal social media account that were criticizing the sexualization of children, criticizing the Democrat Party, and he's being threatened right now with the termination of his membership in the Arizona Association of Realtors, and including his access to the multiple listing service, which is necessary for him to make a living as a residential real estate professional. So we sued them for breach of contract back in May of last year. We are currently litigating. We're trying to amend our complaint to include a due process claim against this private organization. And Arizona is a very progressive state. People don't realize how wonderful our Constitution is, which was adopted in 1912. We had the benefit of learning from 47 state exemplars before Arizona became a state. And so our Constitution was adopted in the height of the progressive movement in America, and it includes a number of wonderful protections for individuals that extend not just to government action, but as well to private action. So if we are able to include this cause of action for our due process claim, which we're seeking right now, then the Arizona Association of Realtors is going to be looking at punitive damages, which hopefully we'll be able to succeed on a trial up in Yavapai County.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very dangerous where you can be judged based off of any belief, I imagine, right? I don't know what's protected in the Arizona Constitution, but compared to federal, but I mean, your clients are free to judge you and use you or not based off of if they like you or not, right? But the professional governing boards apparently have restrictions on what they can impose. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the case that we're litigating right now, it deals with the Arizona Association of Realtors, which is chartered by the National Association of Realtors, which is the largest professional organization in the United States. They have 1.5 million members. And so in the year 2020, right after we were going through COVID, actually in the midst of COVID, obviously, and right after the Summer of Love, where we had race riots across the United States, there was a group within the National Association of Realtors who are a bunch of communists, and they decided to pass a policy that was called Standard of Practice 10.5. And at the same time, they passed another policy that was policy statement number 29. And this organization, according to the bylaws, according to the Constitution, and according to the Code of Ethics, this particular professional standards committee has zero authority to amend the Constitution, bylaws, and the Code of Ethics. Now, my client was charged. He had to go through a hearing and then through an appeal with the Arizona Association of Realtors with violating Article 10 of the Code of Ethics. And what that provision says is that a realtor cannot discriminate against people based on their race, gender, sexuality, etc.
Protected classes, right?
In his professional services or in his employment practices. It says nothing about posting things online. It says nothing about speaking at school board meetings. But unfortunately, across the United States, these local realtor associations and state realtor associations are targeting Christians and conservatives who are speaking out at school board meetings, who are posting Bible verses even on their social media accounts, and saying that this is hate speech in violation of these standards of practice and policy statements, which again have no bearing on your rights or obligations as a realtor. These are individuals who are using, which explicitly states in the Code of Ethics, the Constitution, the bylaws, these interpretations and opinions that are drafted by this committee to punish people, and they have no authority to do it. So it's a breach of contract. I actually just learned today that the National Association of Realtors, as a response to my lawsuit, is going to be considering changing those policies here at the end of this month, the beginning of June as well. So there's a 5-day conference going on. If we win this lawsuit, it is going to throw a wrench in their entire process, because it's going to invalidate dozens and dozens of these opinions and interpretations that have been weaponized against people to take away their First Amendment rights. It's wild.
Yeah, that sounds wild. So, because it can be used either way, right? I mean, there can be people who are maybe the religious right, as you mentioned, right, attacking atheists or something, or pro-choice if they're pro-life, and vice versa, right? It can, in this case, it seems like it was the other. It was left-leaning attacking right-leaning people. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. So, okay, so. How did you get your start in civil rights? Well, when did you first start going into that field?
So I believe wholeheartedly that God put me into this position. So I was at law school in 2020 when COVID happened. I remember going to my spring break. I had a newborn at the time. I think she was just about 1 year old. And I got an email about halfway through spring break telling me that I wasn't going to be allowed to return to school. Because COVID happened, they were shutting things down. I graduated from law school out of my garage in Virginia. So it was a wild circumstance. And just a few months before that, I was in DC, and I was selected by the dean of my law school, who happened to be the former Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, to participate in a 3-day seminar taught by Justice Alito of the United States Supreme Court. He was actually my professor in law school, and it was all about constitutional interpretation. So I have a very significant understanding of that area of law, just because of my circumstances in law school. Like I said earlier, I was recruited to a firm out of California after I graduated and passed the bar to take over their Arizona office. I have a background in sales. I used to do cold calling for a year after I graduated from my undergrad. And so I was building the business here. I was doing a lot of networking. I was playing golf. I was meeting with people, not really doing a whole lot of legal work. And so when COVID happened, I was sitting around watching society fall apart. And my sister, who is a nurse at the time at Phoenix Children's Hospital, was threatened with termination because she was unvaccinated. And I sent 3 demand letters to the board of directors at Phoenix Children's Hospital. This is an organization that does over $500 million a year in revenues. And I got them to give my sister an exemption from the vaccine mandate a day after she was supposed to be terminated, because I threatened to sue all of them personally for breaching her employment contract. And I mean, I was practicing law at the time for less than a year, and I beat an organization that was doing $500 million a year in revenues. So with that confidence, I decided to quit my job and start a nonprofit, which is called the Gavel Project. We're a 501c3. We're still operating. And we are an anti-woke nonprofit. We try to sue organizations that are violating the rights of children in particular, and women, based on ideology. If you are trying to cram your dogmatic ideals down the throats of other individuals, we're going to try and sue you. That's what we do.
Okay. And and this started in California with the COVID stuff. You said that was the most egregious things to go after up front.
Yeah, the organization is an Arizona corporation. Obviously, we're a 501c3 formed here in Arizona, but the majority of the charitable work that we have done has been in California, just because it has been the epicenter of the most egregious violations of constitutional rights. Okay.
And how about lately? How about this year, 2025? You're focusing more in Arizona lately?
Yeah, I do a lot of work here almost exclusively now. I have one case left in California that I'm still working on, which is related to the COVID mandates. But most of my work here is related to election litigation. Like I said earlier, I represented Abe Hamadeh in a number of lawsuits. I've sued a judge here before. I'm suing different court-appointed therapists and attorneys that were involved in violating one of my clients' constitutional rights in federal court here. He was a minor at the time. His parents were going through a divorce. And these really, I don't know how to call them anything but parasites, who are involved in these court appointed family court matters, were basically siphoning off my client's father's wealth. He was a former baseball player. He played in the major leagues for 15 years. And they were, these people make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour, and they just dragged this case out for years for no reason. His mom was abusing him his entire life, both physically, emotionally, and sexually. He wanted nothing to do with her. And he told that to the court, and the court didn't listen. They didn't care about the abuse. They decided they were going to reunify my client with his abusive mom. And in order to do so, they brought in all of these therapists and attorneys, and they lied to the court, and they got an order from the court to send my client to what's called a reunification camp. And this reunification camp is very similar to the Pray the Gay Away camps from back in the 90s and early 2000s, where you're basically trying to convert someone away from their sexuality, forcing children into a nonsensical therapeutic session that is not backed by science at all, and putting him in the hands of an abuser. And it's happening across the United States. I have cases in Georgia that are similar to this. I have cases all over where I get calls from people who have been through this terrible process. And the courts are just violating the constitutional rights of children across the United States just to enrich people who are court-appointed therapists and physicians and attorneys. It's really wild right now what's happening, and people don't know about this.
So, in that particular case, where they're dragging something out and they're not representing what the client, I guess if you call a minor a client or whatever, the ward or whatever, is saying this isn't like a civil suit. That's criminal, right?
Yeah, it's racketeering.
Mislead and okay. Wow, these are a lot of. I've not thought about this stuff very much, so forgive me, but suing a judge sounds like a really big deal to me.
Yeah, I didn't sue the judge in that case. Who knows? Maybe I will at some point.
You had mentioned another one.
Yeah, I did sue. So I was involved in Carrie Lake's litigation. I was never her attorney. Like I said, I represented Abe Hamadeh, who was the attorney general candidate here in Arizona in 2022. Right. The way I got involved in that is I was hired by True the Vote to file a lawsuit on behalf of Senator Sonny Borelli up in Mojave County. This was back in November of 2022. We filed our lawsuit. It involved the signature verification process in Maricopa County, which is by definition unlawful. I saw that Carrie Lake's attorneys in Maricopa County were filing basically the exact same claim that we were. Unfortunately, her attorneys are incompetent, and they didn't see that there was a binding case out of Yuma from 1997 that overturned an election a year after the fact because the county recorder in that instance did not verify signatures in accordance with what's required by ARS section 16550. And what that law says is that upon receipt of the ballot affidavit envelope, that's the envelope you stick your ballot in and submit to the county. They use that. Basically, you sign the outside of it. You put your signature on it. That's supposed to verify your signature. The county recorder shall compare the signature on that envelope to the signature in the voter's registration record. Now, the term registration record means something very specific. It means a document that you sign when you are registering to vote. And in Arizona, we have a very unique constitution. You have to be a citizen in order to vote in Arizona elections. And we have a number of statutes, ARS 16-166, 16-152, that explain that if you are going to register to vote, you have to provide documented proof of citizenship. You have to prove that you are a citizen when you fill out the document and give that to the recorder. You have to show your ID. And what's happening in Maricopa County is they are taking the ballots that are cast by voters in the mail, where you simply sign the envelope, you stick your ballot in, you stick it in the mail and send it in. You don't provide any ID. And they are including that in their database for registration record purposes. They are comparing new signatures to signatures that are not registration records because they were never verified. You never got a verification that the individual was a citizen. You never got verification that the person is who they say they are. And so that's illegal. They did that for 1.3 million signatures or something like that during the 22 election. I let go of my lawsuit in Mojave County because I thought Carrie Lake's attorneys were going to do their job. They didn't. They missed this binding precedent. Their case was dismissed. Their signature verification claim was dismissed. It went to the Supreme Court. While it was going up, I filed a lawsuit against Carrie Lake's judge because I wanted the Supreme Court of Arizona, this was a writ of mandamus that I filed in the Supreme Court of Arizona, to be forced to take the case back and look at this binding precedent that no one brought to his attention and simply rule in favor of Carrie and give her the trial on the signature verification issue. So that case, my lawsuit, which was filed in the Supreme Court, was ultimately dismissed. I wasn't sanctioned. I think I'm one of the few attorneys in the nation who's ever sued a judge and not been sanctioned for it. I was invited by the Supreme Court to participate as amicus. I was hired by an individual who's very wealthy here in Maricopa County named David Mast to file an amicus brief in the Supreme Court of Arizona, and I won. I won as amicus in Carrie Lake's case. The only reason that she got a second trial in May of 2023 is because of my work. And so, unfortunately, her attorneys and I got into a bit of a heated dispute before her case went to trial again. And I tried to intervene in her case again as amicus, meaning a friend of the court, not someone who's involved in the lawsuit, but who has an opinion to offer or some sort of analysis to offer. And I tried to include this argument in the record, and they objected to it. It's the first time I've ever seen someone object to an amicus brief in support of their own client in a case. And they also lied to the judge in that instance about the fact that we hadn't contacted them ahead of time. So there was a number of really egregious mistakes on their behalf. And by the way, in September of 2023, there was a ruling out of Yavapai County involving the same exact argument that I was making in Carrie Lake's case, which won. So this was really a mistake. She should be the governor right now, and she's not because her attorneys botched it so bad.
Wow. That's a lot there. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan. So with all that experience, what's sort of your goals moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I have a great practice right now. I have a number of wonderful clients. I'm taking on cases that I deem important. I get to pick and choose my clients, which is very rare for someone my age in particular.
Okay, right.
And I pick the cases that I want to work on. I get paid for all of them now, and it's a true blessing to be in my situation. So anyone out there with an egregious situation, violation of your civil rights, if you have a contract dispute, I do business litigation as well. I'm happy to take on those types of cases. So yeah, I'm just been super blessed, and I'm happy to help out in Arizona.
Okay, thank you. Any advice for people who think they might be in a situation, they feel like, it's been unfair and they're not sure if they have a case or not, how to proceed?
Yeah, I mean, I can't give legal advice, obviously to people that I don't know and haven't really looked at their situations. But the first thing that you should do if you feel like you're in a situation where your rights have been violated is speak to an attorney. A great place to go is to the State Bar of Arizona's website, where you can get a list of all of the attorneys in Arizona. You can search by practice areas and reach out for a consult. It's a lot of attorneys give free consultations for an hour or so. It's not something that I do, but it is something that a lot of attorneys do, and at least you can get an idea of what you might be able to do to fix the wrong if you do that. Okay,
good advice. All right. I like to ask people as we wrap things up a reflection question, right? So far, you've made some good progress on your journey, but you're still early on, I would say. What do you wish you would have known sooner about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
Don't do thousands of hours of pro bono work. It's very fulfilling. I've done it. I'm probably setting a record here in Arizona for the amount of pro bono work that I've done in the short time that I've been an attorney. But you can accomplish the same goals, especially in the legal field with contingency cases. And that's something that I didn't realize when I started the nonprofit. Had I done so, I think I would have avoided a lot of headaches. And my family wouldn't have given up so much for what we believe in, and still would have been in the same result or same position that we're in now. So that would be my advice to anyone, especially in the legal field. Okay.
Is there a way to do that through a nonprofit still? You just the contingency work versus pro bono? I mean, those are separate issues, correct?
Correct. I mean, you theoretically could take a contingency as a nonprofit, but you're not going to be able to build wealth in that way because I don't take any pay from the nonprofit that I run. I do everything pro bono. I'm not taking a paycheck. Every single dollar that comes in that's donated, and it's all tax deductible, by the way. If you want to give, you can. Thegavelproject.com. You can make a gift right there. But I can't profit off it. So, for example, some of the cases that I took on, I couldn't transfer to my own private firm because that would be a violation. That'd be self-enrichment from a nonprofit charity. So I had to hand off a few of them. But yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. It's very educational, I'm sure, to take on a bunch of work, but yeah, it's not sustainable to just at this level in your career and life to give away all your value and time.
Yeah, I mean, especially when attorneys make, hourly rates, that's how we make a living for the most part.
Right.
So it's, time is money for us, and it's important to use your time wisely. And I'd do it all again in a second. I do everything that I did, but I'd probably structure the business a little bit differently.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Ryan. So if people would like to connect with you, you mentioned the
Gavel Project. Yeah.
Gavel Project. Yes. But if they want to connect with Heath, what should they do?
Heathlaw.com. You can just go there. You can fill out a little questionnaire if you'd like to retain me for your legal services or have a consultation. We don't always get back to folks. That's not us saying you don't have a case or anything like that. It's just that I'm so busy. I wake up at 4:20 every morning to start work. So, I can only handle so much, and I get to pick and choose, like I said. So that's the best way to reach me is heathlaw.com.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for watching and listening, everybody. Thank you very much, Ryan Heath, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and your I'd almost say not a campaign, your what's the word I'm searching for? Your
my background, I'm not sure. I've just been super blessed, like I said. And it's really amazing to work with the kids that I worked with, kids from first grade all the way up into high school who decided they were going to stand on their rights and push back against government overreach. These kids took a huge risk. They put themselves on the line. And, I'm just inspired by those types of situations. And it's just turned into a wonderful career for me.
Right. Excellent. I was going to say your mission, right? Your passion, your impact you're having in all those, in particular in this day and age, right? We need people to absolutely stand up for what they believe in. So, absolute pleasure having you on here, Ryan. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks, Tim.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.